I want to help you buy and sell homes with confidence. My name's Eric Kelly, and I'm a realtor serving the Philadelphia suburbs. Been in real estate for a while, but before real estate, I graduated from Georgetown Law and won multiple awards as a practicing lawyer. I want to bring my nearly a combined decade of real estate and legal experience to help you. I grew up in the Philly suburbs, I live here now, and I want it to be home for you. So let's get started making that happen. Hello, today we are talking about home buying, one of the most basic things you think we would cover in terms of residential real estate in the Philadelphia suburbs, but a lot of people don't know the nuances of the process. Even when they've gone through it, someone has just taken care of a lot of it, maybe in a good way, maybe a not so good way, and that's why you're here, because maybe you're looking to buy again and you don't want to mess it up this time. Maybe you're buying for the first time and just want some insight. Maybe you're selling your home and you want insight into what people are thinking when they're coming through your home. So I'm going to caveat this. There are going to be some sections of this that I'm going to essentially skim through. That's because I have full other guides. I plan to make full videos on those sections. So inspections, appraisals, those are serious moments in the home buying process. I think they deserve their own focus. I will talk about them briefly, but not as much as I will in the future. So this is going to be the nitty gritty of how to buy a home, all 10 stages. I'm going to go through some checklists I have for the home buying process at the end. So that's just going to be some reading. You can check out my guide. I'll put a link to it down in the description. I'll also, if you DM me and just write buying guide, I'll definitely send you this guide absolutely free. But let's dive in. So first, there are 3 big goals to keep in mind when buying a home. One, and this is from the outset, you can start doing this without working with an agent. Hopefully your agent is talking you through this if you are already working with an agent, but it's refine your buying criteria. We don't want to just be looking at the Philly suburbs broadly in a $250,000 price range. So like looking at homes from $750,000 to $1 million, looking at homes from $500,000 to $750,000, whatever it might be. We need to get a little more granular than that so that when homes are coming to market and you're looking through what is being sent to you from the MLS, maybe you're looking at off-market homes too, that when big emotions come, you're really excited about this new house, why don't we just blow through our budget and put an offer in on it? Or when you get down and maybe you lose an offer, that emotions aren't swinging you into a bad decision. So if you have a really specific criteria of what you're looking for, then maybe a month or 2 from now, when something goes really right or something goes really wrong, it won't affect what you're looking at. The second is you should be using data. If you've worked with a realtor before and they haven't talked to you about list to sale ratio, list to price ratio, resale liquidity, days on market, cumulative days on market, all of these things go into making a smart offer. There's a difference between smart offers and strong offers. You can go to the absolute edge of your budget, go in 6 figures over asking, and that would be considered a strong offer, but not necessarily a smart offer. So understanding where you can find deals, when deals come up, is this a good location? Is this going to have good resale value? All of this goes into making a decision that you don't regret 30 days after you buy, 5 years after you buy, or 50 years after you buy. And the final big goal that we should have in mind throughout the home buying process is leverage. And leverage is a broad term, but I think about leverage as maintaining negotiation power and maintaining the ability to back out or get out of deals that you no longer want to be in. So this can happen at multiple different steps. One is controlling emotions. If a listing agent is sitting in an open house and you're gushing over the house, they know they probably have a little bit of leverage with you. That's why we love to talk outside of houses, especially ones with Ring cameras, which is almost every house now. So keeping all that between you, your spouse, your partner, the kids, me, whoever agent you're working with, you can absolutely should be excited about houses, just we don't always necessarily want to show the listing agent. In addition to that, managing inspections, managing appraisals. We absolutely want to have you in a safe home. We know all the major systems, the foundation, all of that is up and running in a good way. But we want to be somewhat selective with what we're inspecting, because you can get a lot of goodwill by waiving some cosmetic stuff that you know you can fix pretty easily if you do win that offer, and that can set you apart and give you some negotiation leverage when actually submitting your offer. Same with appraisals. Hey guys, we'll jump right back in a second, but first I want to offer you something for free. So I have spent over 75 hours putting together my comprehensive buying guide, and this is for first-time home buyers. This is for someone who is an experienced home buyer and just wants a little bit more information on how to navigate an appraisal gap. The guide covers everything. So I spoke to tons of home buyers, past clients, current clients, any agent that would talk to me about this, so that I could give you as much information as possible. And the best part is you don't have to pay for a thing. So if you're interested in this guide, either check out the link in the description below or DM me buying and I will get it right over to you. All right, back to the video. So let's talk about what we're going to cover in the next 10, 15, whatever, however many minutes. So we're going to talk about the first meeting, what you should be talking about with your realtor, what you should be talking about with yourself, what I would talk about with you if you were my new client. Then we're going to talk about financing, which is relatively straightforward, your search strategy, which is obviously going to be very personal, but I think there's some good guidance that you can use in making that personal decision. Then how to tour homes. This is, I think, underrated. A lot of people think realtors just open doors and then they let you free, and unfortunately a lot do, but I think there's a better way to go about it, and one that saves you a lot of time. And then writing offers, getting under contract, inspections and appraisals, which we'll talk about briefly, due diligence, and then closing and the final week. And then I'll run through some checklists of things that you will do throughout the process, just so that if you are working with someone else, you can be sure that you're working with someone good. And if you're working with me, then you'll have a really good sense of what's coming for you. So let's talk about the first meeting. So beyond obviously getting to know each other and making sure that it's a good fit, the first meeting is all about building out your decision framework, how you're going to make a decision on which houses to tour, which houses to submit offers on, and which house will ultimately be the one that you really want to live in. So this allows for efficiency in the buying process and a lack of regret after the buying process. And by efficiency, I mean, if you build out this detailed framework of exactly where you want to look, the exact type of house you want to look at, the stats around the house, how you plan to attack the market, how you plan to build offers and submit offers, then you end up having to look at fewer houses because you already know what you want. When it's time to submit offers, they can come together really quickly. You know how you're going to structure them, which is important, especially let's say you work Saturdays, you can only go see houses Sundays. A lot of time people want that last offer in by Sunday evening or Monday morning. So being able to get that together quickly without having to go back and forth over the exact structure can make a difference in terms of you getting that house. So what I cover specifically, what I hope other agents are covering specifically is, one, your timeline. Are you needing to sell a house? When do you need to move? Is this because of work? Is this because of some sort of school? Is this because you need to be closer to family now? Or are you a little more flexible? Do you have time? Is this going to be a casual look over the course of months, maybe even longer, which is totally fine. You can absolutely work with an agent and either set a really long deadline for the buyer agency agreement or just keep renewing it. I think both work. If you have like a year-long timeline and you're getting pressured by an agent to sign a year-long agency agreement, maybe find someone else who will work with you for like 2 months, 3 months, and then if it's a good fit, you guys can re-up in the future. It shouldn't be signing your life away in terms of this house for the foreseeable future. And then in terms of specifics about the house, I call them lifestyle not negotiable. So your commute pattern, whether you want or don't care about walkability, school priorities you may have. Obviously I can help find information about schools. They're like U.S. News rankings, stuff like that. But I'm not here to comment on what is and is not a good school or what would be a good fit in terms of school for you. Everyone has different criteria about that. And I don't want the National Association of Realtors getting mad at me. Then we'll talk about privacy, lot size you're hoping for, whether that matters to you or not, and then anything else that you might want from a home. And then we'll talk about the specifics of how you live in your home. Is our kitchens really important to you? Are family rooms really important to you? Finished basement, if there's a basement at all. Do you want bonus rooms? How many bedrooms, baths, half baths? All of this goes into narrowing your focus so that by the end of going through what you want out of the lifestyle portion and your specific home wants, then you'll have a very narrow set of criteria. So when homes do come to market, it's easy to either be like, oh, this fits everything, let's go look at it. Or, oh, this is an issue with it. Why even bother to look? Because this is now make or break for us. And then we'll talk about your risk tolerance. So these are things that don't necessarily fall into the criteria you'd put into like the MLS or Zillow or Redfin, but will affect how you view a home. So have you had roof issues your whole life and you're like, I absolutely can't deal with a leaking roof the next like 5 years, we need a new roof? Stuff like that. Are you okay with doing some big projects? Are you okay with doing some slight cosmetic changes when you move in? Do you want it absolutely turnkey, which you might pay a bit of a premium for? All of these go into the final narrowing. And then obviously we talked about it, but I think commute pattern, walkability, all that gets into your target geographic areas. And the Philly suburbs, you can do a lot of cross shopping. For example, like mainline adjacent towns like Malvern, Paoli, Devon, Berwyn. There's a lot of crossover with Chester County towns or Lower Bucks towns. So you will do a bit of cross shopping. So getting an unbelievably narrow sense of your geography, if you don't already have a strong opinion on that, isn't always super necessary. But having everything else in place and then looking at geography will naturally narrow it. Like, for example, if you want more of a downtown feel in that like upper mainline, Chester County, mainline adjacent area, Wayne feels like an obvious choice because you do have that walkability close to it. But if you want more of a full suburban privacy feel, then you look at, for example, Newtown Square. You can look at Berwyn, Devon, those areas. So what you want out of the home will somewhat limit the geography naturally if you don't have a specific place you want to be. So those are all things that you should talk about during your first meeting. That'll help narrow the focus. That makes the rest of the process much smoother, much less burdensome. It's really annoying to be looking for a house for like 6 months and you're going to a combination of like 6 showings at open houses every weekend for that whole time. You end up seeing like 150 houses. And you're like, I guess these kind of fit what we want, but it still feels like you're kind of spraying and praying. It's better to, hey, we're looking for 3 months. We've been to like an open house or 2 showings a week. It feels really manageable. All of them are essentially what we want. Maybe we've just missed out on a few offers. Maybe it's like 1 or 2 small details about the houses that we didn't like, but I'm not getting overwhelmed by the process. It's a much more sustainable way to buy a house than just throwing stuff at a dartboard with a map of the Philly suburbs on it. Okay, next we're going to talk about financing. And in terms of home buying, there's 2 steps to this. There's the external and the internal. The external step is get pre-approved. Now, if you have a lender you really like working with, maybe you've purchased a house before and you just had a great experience, maybe your job has a competitive program. I know that's how my wife and I got some relatively advantageous rates on this house. Thank you, my wife's work. But I also have a big list of lenders that I love working with who I think are really great. They do unbelievable work focused on the Philly suburbs. So that's a relatively straightforward process. I can help you out with that if that's something you're worried about. And then the other one is figuring out internally your personal financing roadmap, essentially. And a lot of people do this by saying, we want to stay in this X to Z price band. And maybe we're looking in the 800 to 850,000. We're looking in the 400 to $425,000 window. We're looking at 1.2 to $1.5 million, whatever that price band might be for you. I think a better way to go about that is you determine your monthly payment comfortability, and then you factor in everything that's going to go into the house. A lot of people think it's just, what is my mortgage going to do in terms of monthly payments? But you're dealing with the principal on that mortgage, the interest on that mortgage, taxes, insurance, HOA fees, if that's applicable. I like to, especially if you're commuting like into Philly, or if you're relocating like my wife and I did up from DC or down from New York, and you're going to be commuting back and forth to either of those cities or anywhere that you might be commuting to, let's factor in gas prices, let's factor in parking prices. All of this is going to go into this move. So you should be adding everything you can into this monthly payment so that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And then it's really easy to do the math on what can you afford in terms of a house that way. And that will set the price band. You figure out what is the max monthly payment, what's your ideal, and that'll give kind of the top half of it. And then you look at that number, you briefly look at houses that are kind of in that range. If those are above what you're actually looking for in a house, then you drop the floor of your price band, and now you're in a great spot because you know you can cover it from a monthly payment perspective, and you're finding houses that you love. So that's the external and the internal. We figure out that price band by figuring out monthly payment and what all goes into that, and you get pre-approved and you see what your technical ceiling is. I don't love pushing people up against their technical ceiling. I think it leads to potentially a lot of stress, especially in those first couple of years after buying. But obviously, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. You're in charge here. I'm just trying to help. Hey guys, we'll jump right back in a second, but I want to offer you something absolutely free. So I have put together a complete relocation guide all the way from deciding we want to move to the Philadelphia suburbs through closing. And I want to give it to you so that your relocation process is simple. So I interviewed a ton of relocators, past clients, current clients, pulled from some personal experience in this on what made our relocation process easy. And I put over 100 hours into creating this guide just for you. So if you're interested, either check out the link in the description below or just DM me relocating and I will get that guide right over to you. All right, back to the video. Make it happen. Okay. We talked about this a bit, but let's talk about search strategy, and I want to start with some common mistakes that I see. So geographically, thinking counties act as one market. I've been talking about Chester County a lot. I was just showing clients around a few places in Chester County this morning, so I think it's top of mind. But it's a good example of this. Like, there's a huge difference between what Coatesville is like, what Westchester's like, what Downingtown's like, what Phoenixville is like, what Collegeville is like. So just saying, oh, we definitely want to be in Chester County, well, that doesn't give a good sense of what you're actually looking for. So do you want to be near towns? Do you want the walkability of Westchester? Do you want the restaurants and the bars and the distilleries of Phoenixville? Do you want just full land? Do you want to go to Chadds Ford and just get a bunch of land? So it can be very varied by county. So think about that. Not defining your price band, we just talked about that. That's a mistake a lot of people make. I think that's the easiest way to regret your purchase if you go house poor. And then not separating must-haves from would-likes. Must-haves are things like, we need a functioning roof, we need a functioning HVAC system, we have to be by a train station for my commute, we need to have access to a highway for the commute. And likes are like, we would love an updated main bath, where you can always change the would likes. You can't change the must-haves is how I view it. And then another common mistake is not factoring in competition. I think a lot of people, especially early on in a home search, they find a house they love, they submit the offer, and then they're almost shocked when theirs doesn't get accepted. This is an unbelievable place to live. I grew up here. I live here now. I was away for a little bit and wanted to come back. There are a lot of people that feel the same way. So there's going to be competition, especially for well-priced homes. So understanding that it might take a couple offers to get into the house that's ultimately meant for you, and not getting discouraged or changing your criteria based on losing an offer or two, I think is big. So searching correctly, kind of the opposite of all this. Define your search area, factor in exactly what you need out of the home. After that, we can get even narrower, defining, do you want walkability? Do you want bikeability? Would you personally like to be around a certain school? Commute access, the amenities you're looking for in a house, the type of neighborhood you'd like to be in. All of this will narrow it down, and then we end up actually looking at a pretty narrow geographic area. And then defining your price band, which we talked about. So how I help with this, obviously it feels like I'm just telling you to do a bunch of homework, but I always want to help my clients assess competition, assess price movements, market dynamics, what inventory is like in that specific location, local home conditions. All of this I will help you with, because that can get overwhelming quickly, especially if you're looking at 1, 2, 3 or more locations. Now you're comparing a lot of stats across geography, and that's where I think I become very useful in this early stage of the home buying process. Beyond that, calculating risk, including, I like to talk about days on market averages. This gives you a sense of who's in control, sellers or buyers, list to sale calculations, new listings versus closings, months of inventory, and condition premium. So all of this will factor into how you determine the price of your offers, how you value homes in similar markets. So all of that is stuff I will absolutely help with as you're figuring out just what you like and don't like. This is a very fun part of the process. Home tour. So we talked about this narrowing will hopefully make it so we're not just having to spam homes for months at a time as we try and figure out exactly what you like and that we can win. We figure out exactly what you like and then we make it so you can win. But a lot of people go through home tours. I know my wife and I were guilty of this when we were looking to buy a home years ago now, which is crazy. But you get so wrapped up in the excitement of we're about to have a home. You're envisioning how you're going to use it, whether that's for family, which is great, whether you are just so tired of living in a small apartment, or relatively small. Some of the apartments in the city are massive, whatever it is to you, but you're just looking for more land, more space. You just get excited. And that's a good thing. You should be excited. This is a very exciting time, but so that you don't regret the decision, there are some things that I like to have buyers focus on as they're touring homes. I actually just went through this whole spiel with some new clients this morning. So the first one is location quality. And this goes into the street feel, the noise, what is the traffic like in the surrounding area, walkability, if that's a thing for you, school assignment verification. And this goes into more than just if you care about the school district you're in, but ultimately resale liquidity in the Philly suburbs is driven heavily by school assignment. So understanding how that's going to impact the value of your home and what you should be offering is important. And then your personal commute, accessibility to trains, highways, traffic patterns in the area, all of that is important. So that's location quality when you're looking at a home. The next is livability. Really picture yourself living in that house on a day-to-day basis. Not, oh my God, I'm so excited to have guests over. This is going to be a stunning foyer. But it's Tuesday morning, you're rushing to get to work. Is this a place that is conducive to getting you through your day in an effective way? Maybe it's Friday night, you just want to hang out, it's a quiet time. Is this a place you actually want to come back to and reset in? So this goes to the layout. Is it functional? Is there flow in the house that works for your life? The natural light, the storage. I know closets were a big thing for us when we were moving. Some people really care about basement storage. Maybe you have big stuff. Maybe you're fixing up cars and you need garage space. All of this goes into the livability. And then parking, the outdoor space usability, and then lifestyle needs. So do you need fences for pets or for little kids? Are there HOA limits on sheds, on renovations, on putting in basketball hoops, whatever it might be? All this gets into how you use the home. So being able to figure out, is this a good fit for what you need it to be? And then after that, the final one in this category in terms of touring homes, I like to focus on risk. So I view this mostly as a check of major systems. So it's roof age and visible condition. And then you want to look at HVAC age, HVAC functioning. I know this is, I think, the most important in the fall and spring months when it's just really nice and temperate out. People can get away with having a poor functioning HVAC system, just keeping the house where it needs to be. And this can get really problematic when you move in and you realize, oh my God, it's 89 degrees in here in the summer. They really messed us over in the spring. Now we have to drop $20K to update this thing. So that also gets into inspections, but just something to check out. I like to check this stuff out. Amperage on your electrical system, 200's ideal. Some of these older houses, you're still sitting at 180, and that can lead to issues depending on how you use the home. And then signs of water intrusion, foundation issues. Most foundations, you're going to see a crack or two somewhere. That's natural. That's how cement works. But big cracks in the foundation, if you see water coming out of the cracks, if you see any stains around the cracks, these are bigger issues. And then drainage and grading. Luckily, a lot of the properties now that you see on the MLS, Redfin, Zillow, whatever it is, in and around the Philly suburbs have very good grading systems. A lot have sump pumps now, especially newer builds. But just understanding that, especially if you're looking at potentially older homes, of which there are a lot in the Philadelphia suburbs, and that's somehow everywhere, Chester County, Montgomery County, Lower Bucks, Upper Bucks, Central Bucks, everywhere it feels, Delco, shout out Delco. All of these have older homes, so you'll probably come across one or two. These are where I typically see grading and drainage issues pop up most consistently. And then septic or well or public in terms of your utilities. This can make a big difference, especially depending on how you use your home. Maybe you're a big wet wipe person, and that's gonna affect you. Shout out wet wipes. So that's some actual tangible things you can do when looking through homes to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you, rather than just kind of feeling it out on vibes. Because I know that's what a lot of people do, and they feel like, I'm just looking at this to see if I like it in my soul or not. These are some ways to see if you'll like it in real life. Okay, and then writing an offer. And I'm sure you've heard the horror stories. This was happening when we were buying a house. This is now happening as my clients are buying houses. A little less so now. We're getting a lot of price reductions, but you see these horror stories of, look, we've submitted a dozen offers on all these different homes. The closest we've come was losing to someone who was only $50,000 over asking and waived all inspections. That's changing a little bit now. A lot of these homes are having to reprice. You're not having to bid 6 figures over asking. You're not having to waive everything. Buyers are getting power back in the market. But it's also important to consider that price alone is not the only thing that goes into making a strong offer. So price is absolutely probably the biggest factor. Some people, they just want to see the highest number and they're going to go with that. But in addition to a strong price, deposit structure matters, inspection scope and timeline matters, financing and appraisal terms matter, lender strength matters, settlement timing, closing timing, the ability to potentially give rent back and have move out, move in date flexibility is big, the inclusion or lack thereof of personal property, and the clarity and simplicity of the offer. All of these, I promise, factor in addition to price. So if you feel dejected, if you feel overwhelmed at the thought of having to offer tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking, I promise you that is not the only way to successfully have your offer accepted. And then deciding what you offer on a specific home. Obviously, we don't want to go out of your price band, because if you go too low, you're going to regret the house you purchased. If you go too high, you're going to regret how much you're paying for the house. So what do? You look at a specific house. We conduct, you're going to hear this a lot if you look at any realtor pages, but comps, it's comparable houses. So houses in the immediate geographic location with similar layouts that have recently sold, ideally in the same school district, that have ideally the same number of beds, same number of baths, similar time of build, similar time of any renovations, similar amenities, ideally in the same neighborhood. So all of this is how you find a comparable house, or a comp, as everyone calls it. You look at these, you figure out what they've sold for, you figure out what you're comfortable with, and then we adjust based on the specifics of the house, what the comp is, and you come out with what the value you believe of the house is. And then you can adjust down or up from there based on how interested you are in that home. And I'll say this, if you look at my Instagram page at all, I put a couple of these out there. Don't be afraid to lowball. People win lowball offers all the time. You don't know what the competition is actually going to be like. I'm going to call the agent and try and figure out exactly what the competition is going to be like. Don't worry. But people back out all the time. You might be in competition with people who have submitted offers on other houses. They accept all the other offers. Now you're the only game in town. You're 30,000 under asking. You felt like they're going to be so pissed at us for even submitting this with all the competition. Now there's no competition. You just got the house of your dreams for $30,000 under asking. I talk to my parents about this sometimes, and they bought when there's less competition in the market. And they're like, we lowballed everything and we got this house super cheap. Look what it's worth now. I'm like, that's not necessarily how it works all the time, guys. But it can work, and it does work in the current market, just not as frequently as it did 30 years ago, whenever they bought their house. I think it was almost exactly 30 years ago. That's great. 25. Yeah, it's not necessarily like that anymore, but yeah, don't be afraid to lowball. And then preventing regret. The reason we go through all of this criteria, all of these narrowings, why we're so focused on certain factors when touring homes, why we don't move outside of the price band that you've set for yourself, is so that you prevent regret. There's a few ways that I've seen, luckily none of my clients, but other people regret buying their homes, and that's they strayed from their search criteria a little bit, submitted an offer, it got accepted, and then like 2 weeks later, because they're still getting Redfin alerts and stuff, they see a house and they're like, oh no, that's the house we actually should have been in, but now you're in it. So don't stray from your search criteria, even if it means searching for a little longer. I promise you will end up in the home you're supposed to be in. The other ways are appraisals coming in lower. Appraisals are something that you should factor in when determining the price you're willing to pay for a home. If there's going to be a huge gap between that value and not, and you don't have something in place with the sellers to cover that appraisal gap, that's when people can get into a lot of trouble, and they regret having to cover, let's say, a $50,000, $75,000 gap. That can be very stressful. And then this is why I don't think it's smart in the current state of the market to waive every inspection. Some people do just to win an offer, and then they move in and the HVAC goes right away, or maybe there's a pool in the backyard and the pool has a giant crack in it, so now you have salt water leaking into your ground. These are some ways that people regret their home. There are very easy ways to still win offers and avoid these mistakes. Hey guys, we'll jump right back in a second, but first I want to offer you something for free. So I have spent over 75 hours putting together my comprehensive buying guide, and this is for first-time home buyers. This is for someone who is an experienced home buyer and just wants a little bit more information on how to navigate an appraisal gap. The guide covers everything. So I spoke to tons of home buyers, past clients, current clients, any agent that would talk to me about this, so that I could give you as much information as possible And the best part is you don't have to pay for a thing. So if you're interested in this guide, either check out the link in the description below or DM me buying and I will get it right over to you. All right, back to the video. Okay, so I'm gonna run through these next 4 relatively quickly. 2 of them are just very straightforward. 2 of them we're gonna have videos in the future on. So the next step is getting under contract. This is probably more important for your agent than you. But so in the 24 to 48 hours after getting under contract, your offer is accepted. Very exciting time. You have to confirm inspection scheduling, confirm lender timeline and documentation, order title and review disclosures. If an HOA is involved, you request the documents from them, and then you set expectations for repair negotiations. Now that's going to be between me and the listing agent. But getting all of this under control early is key, because then if something does come up, you have time between when you find out and the closing date to actually address it and get it fixed or remediated, whatever needs to happen. So that's important to stay on top of this early. A lot of this is for me, but just in case maybe you had these issues when you bought a house before, maybe you don't really understand what agents do. This is a big stack of things that agents do. Now, the next 2 things that come are inspections and appraisals. I've talked about it briefly. I'm not going to belabor either of these things. Inspections, you should, in the current market, have at least an inspection or 2 that you want to undertake. I don't think you should inspect everything. It loses you a lot of goodwill in negotiations. It can frustrate the seller. It can frustrate the listing agent. And there are a lot of things that are just going to come up that are cosmetic that you can absolutely fix with like $200 of paint. But I have a full inspection guide. If you go to my website, you can check that out. I'm going to put a video out probably either later this week or next week, fully explaining inspection. So we'll dive into it there. Same thing with appraisals. You can avoid a lot of appraisal issues by just not outkicking your coverage in terms of the price you're willing to offer. A lot of people go hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking, and that's when you're typically going to see appraisal gaps. And you see this a lot in older homes where it's tough to find recent comparable sales. The one thing I like to do as an agent when you're getting ready to go through the appraisal process is find a lot of good comps that will match the price that you're offering. So if you do get that appraisal gap and the client does want to challenge it, you can do that right away. You have good data to show the appraiser, and that can get you out of a lot of sticky situations. And then the next thing is due diligence. So this includes title searches, surveys, HOA adherence. It essentially ensures encumbrance-free ownership of the home. I work with a lot of good title people. I do some searches myself just to make sure that everything is good. But just in terms of what it'll go through, it's budget and reserve, special assessment history, rules that affect your lifestyles, especially in the HOA, litigation problems with the property, if any, and then insurance coverage. A lot of this is just kind of nitty gritty stuff that the agents, title companies, I love working with Take Me to Closing. They're very good. But they'll handle most of this stuff. And then any issues that do crop up, we'll bring them to you, discuss them, and see how you want to handle them. But just so you know, this is happening while we're in this period. And then the fun day, you're about to move into your house, we're closing day. So a few things happening on closing day. It should be all exciting, but it also should be taken seriously in case you do need to do something on this final day to ensure that you don't regret this purchase. The big thing for you is going to be the final walkthrough. You're going to go to the property before you meet and sign papers, which might occur at the property, might occur at the listing agent's brokerage, it might occur at just some random conference room in some like strip mall. Seen it all. But you go through it, and one, you're just looking to make sure that the house is in the condition that you expect it to be in, but you're also looking to make sure that repairs were completed, if applicable, if you negotiated that throughout the inspection process, that there's no new damage, that all the appliances and fixtures that you contracted for are still there and are still in the same condition. This is a little tip for contract writing. Put absolutely everything in the contract in writing. So as a lawyer, having gone through contracts in law school, then having dealt with them in practice, if it is going to be litigated at some point or go through some kind of ADR, alternative dispute resolution, the first thing they do is look at the four corners of the contract. So having absolutely every detail in the contract is going to lead to a lot better outcomes long term. So that's just something to think about when finding an agent. It might be helpful to have one with legal experience. And then make sure the heat's functioning, the AC is functioning, cold water's functioning, hot water's functioning, and that the seller is actually moved out. You wouldn't think that'd be an issue, but sometimes it's crucial. And then you're gonna look at the closing disclosure. We're gonna review that line by line. The big things I care about are that any credits were applied correctly both ways. Any tax proration clauses, that's key to look at. Focus on title and lender fees. Don't want you getting gypped out of anything. And then any surprise add-ons that we don't expect. These are areas where I think some agents, especially if they're not completely comfortable reviewing contracts, can essentially skim over. And not that it's going to cost the vast majority of people, but in the instance that you are that minority that it might cost, probably helpful to have someone who's very used to reviewing and understanding contracts be the one doing that for you. Just saying. And then closing day. So there are going to be some minute differences, whether you're in PA or New Jersey, and then the way that the whole deal is set up. But essentially what happens is you sign documents, funds get transferred, the deed gets recorded, and then you go like this, and someone hands you keys, and you have a new house, and it's super exciting. So I'm just gonna quickly run through the checklists that I like to go through. These are really broad checklists. This is not gonna be everything, but the big things that I like to focus on. So your steps to success. Clear decision framework, so a targeted location, a defined price band, and a separation of what you must have in the home from what you really want in the home. And then what I'd love to have from you is during active negotiation windows. So that's when we're about to submit an offer, when we've just submitted an offer, when we're going through the inspection process, when we're going through due diligence, and that area right around closing. Attentive response times is how I like to describe it. I don't expect you to respond in under a minute. That's not how life works. But same day is big. If we're in the middle of submitting an offer, same like hour or two would be really helpful. Usually people just do that because they're excited and they're like, give me a response. I want to know if we won this house or not. But just one of those things that you see memes all the time. It's like where my buyer went when we were on closing day, and it's the outdoor boy dude in Alaska. I'm on a remote island. Great video, but whatever. And then the last thing, and I think this is important to keep in mind as you're going through the home buying process, keeping the ability to walk away. A lack of wanting to walk away from a bad deal or some shady operators or some shoddy construction is how I've seen most people get into trouble. So having a willingness to walk away if it's not the right thing for you, I think is an underused tool in a lot of home buyers' toolkit. And then you'll get a lot from me, hopefully, but some things I like to point out that home buyers do get is a detailed strategy based on your criteria and goals. I don't like giving generic advice. I want to give you the specific numbers as they apply to you, the specific numbers as they apply to the homes that you're looking at, as they apply to your budget. I want a strategy that feels like it would only work for you, because that's how good strategies work. They only work in the circumstances that they're applied in. Offer a negotiation term structure to protect you, but I also don't want to kill deals. So I want to work in your best interest, obviously, as a fiduciary, but I don't want to kill deals for you. So riding that line, I think, is something that separates decent agents from good agents. And then an inspection strategy designed to maximize your leverage, but also protect your interests. This is why we look at major systems and we don't nitpick about every little detail, is how I typically like to lay it out. Obviously, if you have more leverage, you can nitpick a little more. If you're in a highly competitive offer situation, you can nitpick less. and then a calm, thought out process that reduces surprises. This way we front load a lot of the work, a lot of the criteria, so that as you get into what should be, in a lot of cases, the more stressful parts, they become less stressful because you know exactly what you should be looking for. And then finally, and I touched on this a bit, but I think a background of legal experience is extremely helpful as you get past the just pure fun of the home search. I think people undervalue what good agents do in that window from submitting offer to closing. And I think a lot of agents get away with simply opening doors and then just kind of filling out paperwork in a boilerplate way and not really setting their clients up for success in a long-term value way. So this is the home buying process. I hope you guys found this interesting. I know I can just talk sometimes. But next time we're going to talk about relocation, how to do that. I was a relocator myself, so we'll walk through all of that. But like I said, I have a whole home buying guide that you can download. I'll put the link below. You can also go to my website, erickkellyrealtor.com, and it'll be one of the top links there. But I hope you guys found this interesting. I hope this helps you in your home buying journey. And if you have any questions, even if you're not my client, reach out and I'll answer them. I really love talking about this stuff, as you can probably tell. Okay, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.